Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome to this week's episode of the Podiatry Legends podcast. Today is a little bit different. I have two guests on here. I have Carly O'Donoghue and Elan Silver, and we are doing a book review. I haven't read the book, but Elan has. So the book we're going to be reviewing is called The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. Carly read the book, thought it was awesome, and Carly and I were going to do a book review on it leading up to the national conference. Problem is, I didn't read the book. So we put that aside. But when we were doing my one-day workshop, Elan was there and he said, I thought that book was crap. And then Carly and Elan started to discuss the fors and against of the book. And we decided, or Carly decided, this would make a great podcast episode to get two different opinions on the book. So welcome to the podcast. And I'm looking forward to this debate because one of you have got to convince me whether I do or do not read the book.
Oh, I'm so excited which side you're going to go to, Tyson. As I said just before we came on the podcast, I'm super excited about this one because I love the book and it changes your mental game around conversations. And I love it. And I've recommended it to so many people in my life that are going through situations and they're loving it as well. So I'm actually keen to see Elan's point of view into why he doesn't actually like the book.
So Elan.
Well, I like the core idea. It's simple, it's elegant, it gives him permission to stop trying to manage everyone else's emotions. But I reckon Alan Pease did it a lot better in Don't Sweat the Small Stuff 30 odd years ago. And he did it in far fewer than 300 pages. For me, after chapter 1 in Mel's book, I got the whole idea behind what she was getting at.
Oh, no way. The other chapters are amazing. And you just have to go through the titles of the chapter and go, oh, well, yeah, that reflects in my life. Or, yeah, I understand what she's doing there. And it's really exciting when you can read a book and it can create some freedom in your mental game of how you deal with really hard situations or really hard conversations with people. So that's probably more so what I took out of the book, that having those hard conversations with people, why do you put a roadblock on yourself before you have those conversations with people?
Because I was actually going to ask about that. What is the book actually about? Because at the top it says a life-changing tool that millions of people can't stop talking about. Millions plus three, the three of us. So Elan, what's your rebuttal on that?
Okay, now this is what got Carly really fired up. In fact, we got halfway through this conversation. Then
I'm a very passionate person, Elan.
Let's make a podcast after this. And Elan thought, yay. So now, look, I agree that the idea of letting them is really liberating. It's good to be able to let go of things that you can't control. But that's where you have to pause, because I think for this to actually work, it takes a bit of emotional maturity. And that's where I think it starts to wobble a little bit. My concern is that the audience that it's aimed at, the everyday reader looking for relief, might not have the right internal toolkit to use it properly. So you need a little bit of IQ to know when to figure out when letting go is actually healthy and when it's just a fancy form of avoidance.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you on there.
And then you've got your emotional intelligence to be able to read the room and actually understand what your own feelings are. If you don't have a moral compass, you might find yourself, people might actually assume that you're just being selfish or disengaging from a conversation. If you're having a chat to a person who's read this book and goes mentally, oh, I'm just going to let them get away with this, so you might frustrate the other person. So you need a good amount of self-awareness and situational awareness at the same time as using the theory. And I just think without that toolkit, you need to be really careful, because as beautiful and simple as it sounds, to know when your reaction is about them and trying to figure out when it's actually about you.
Oh, absolutely.
It's really powerful, but also really dangerous.
Do you know what? I think that we might end up being on the same page in some of our comments. However, this book, and I'm glad you mentioned at the beginning that you've only read a couple of chapters, because I think some of those other chapters actually answer your question. The
Hang
The
on.
emotion.
So, Elan, did you read the whole book or do
Yeah,
you only read part
all
of
Oh,
it?
you did read the
300
whole book.
glorious pages of
Oh,
ABCD, and I even
sorry,
got the
you hate the
download
whole
on
book.
how to apply it to children.
Oh,
Good luck
yes,
with that.
322 pages.
I know, and they're all fascinating. And okay, I don't think that we really at the beginning spoke about what the book is about. So it's about,
No, I think I asked the question what the book was
yeah, I know.
about,
Did
and
we
neither of you
answer that? Or
answered
you
it.
think,
No,
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 the,
neither of you answered it because I'm going, okay, you're going backwards and forwards about the book, but I'm thinking, but
what
what
is
is
the
the
book
book about? You
about?
keep saying about the let them. Is it let people give you insults and you just put up with it?
No, see, this is the thing. It's not, it's absolutely not about letting people get away with it. It's about not letting people's reactions to what you say control what you do next or stop you from doing
Oh, I
something.
like that.
So
Mm.
it's about letting other people react to how they're going to react anyway. So you can't control how people react to anything. So once we start to think that before our conversation, we can control the outcome of the emotions that's going to happen to it, then that's when we have to say, look, I'm going to say this to this person, let them have their emotional response because you can't control their emotional response. And then the other part of the theory is let me. So let me then do what I need to do in life and carry on in
Oh, I
life.
like that. So, are you saying if I said or did something and I get a reaction from people,
Yeah.
their reaction, I shouldn't be adjusting how I want to do things just based on that reaction?
Yeah, so the let them theory is giving you the freedom to actually live your own life how you want to live it and making decisions and really hard decisions and following through with them without letting the other person's emotional reaction stop you from doing that.
Okay, but it's not about not having feelings for other people.
No, not at all. Not at all. No. So there's a
The
difference between being nice and being kind. And so
Yeah.
you can do things
mm.
kindly, but if you try and be nice to people all the time and pat around their emotional situation, then it affects you. It actually backfires on you.
But the big part of it is actually trying to figure out when is the right time to let them and when not to let them. It's harder, but it's more human. Like when sometimes you do need to challenge someone to not have that emotion. That's where the difficulty comes in exercising the theory.
Yeah, absolutely. And they delve into a little bit of, say someone I suppose it's how to react. So when you were talking about that emotional intelligence, they do go through that when you're saying, oh, how are you actually reacting to situations emotionally? You might find that your emotional intelligence is quite immature. So you tend to, it's more of a deep dive into how you react to situations as well as how other people react to situations and having that mindfulness around the whole thing that you can't control people's emotional reactions.
But
And I think
isn't that sort of
let
what
go of that.
that's what Elan said before about the person reading this book has to have a certain level of emotional intelligence to be able to know when to and when not to do or say something, because if they're a bit thick and then they say, and when people say, yeah, read the room, and some
Mm.
people just
Everyone can
can't
read the room.
read the room.
No, I don't think it's about reading the room. I don't think it's about preventing yourself from
Well, I have
having.
no idea because I haven't read the book.
I know. I think at the let them stage that you can say what you need to say, but preventing you from saying something because of the fear of how someone's going to react.
Aha, good point.
You need to let go of that fear and continue on with, well, I really need to say this to you, but what's stopping me from having that really hard conversation? And a lot of times it comes back to the fear of the outcome of the situation or the fear of how people are actually going to react to the situation. And this goes from from parenting kids to all the way up to leadership and big corporations. In leadership in business, if you are needing to have really tough conversations with some employees, but you know that maybe they're going to react badly, then
Yeah.
that may stop you from actually going through with the conversation that you need to do. With parenting, if you are afraid of what some other mums are going to say because you need to bring up a situation with a child, that's the same situation. So it's let people have their emotional responses. If you're looking at politics, if you're talking to someone about politics, and you can have a really good conversation, but if you're afraid of every emotional reaction of other people, you're going to prevent yourself from living out your life and doing what you want to do.
That's a good point, because I know, like, if somebody has bad breath and you're talking to them, you're like just trying to keep away. How do you say to somebody that might be a close friend or someone that you work with that, did you stink? And then waiting for their, I suppose you just got to let them react.
Yeah.
That's
So
it.
you get to choose. If you mentally go, look, I'm going to let people be them, and they get to choose how they're going to react, and I'm going to let them do that.
Yep.
You then control what impacts you and to what extent it impacts you. So you're taking back the control by letting them, by not controlling or having the perceived control of their emotional reaction.
Okay. What do you reckon, Elan?
When applied, that is how I believe Mel Robbins has intended the book to be interpreted. But there's also that sort of, there's a big difference between healthy detachment and emotional, say, dissociation or dissonance. And that's where it can be a little bit misapplied. It's a very intelligent person once said, you get what you tolerate. So sometimes you do need to apply the almost the reverse of the let them theory and say, actually, I'm not going to let them do this. So maybe that actually should have been a good passage in the book, is when not to let them, and actually flesh it out a little bit more. I know she goes into the let them do this and then the counterbalance of, if I'm going to let them do this, let me compensate by doing something else. But I guess some of the issues that you just touched on there is sometimes let them can enable bad behavior. It can avoid the hard conversations with people and employees. Worryingly, and she did mention this, you can disengage from the loved ones. She was kept on talking about that friend of hers where her husband's a lazy bones and sits on the couch, eats the wrong food, and is generally unhealthy. So the premise there was the wife should let him be this way. He doesn't want to exercise it, let him not exercise. Well, sometimes you need to have that hard conversation and say, that's not what I expect from you. And it's kind of dodging a responsibility.
I think that with the whole let them theory of dealing with someone else's emotions and how then you yourself are going to deal with that person's emotions, they're going to have that reaction anyway. And so it's how then you deal with it. So you're letting yourself take control of how you deal with that emotion. So it's not really enabling them. They're going to be who they are. So if they react badly, you get a choice about what you do next.
Okay, this is
Yes,
interesting.
yeah.
Well, no, I'm finding it interesting because I can think of so many aspects just in life and society and conversations that you have with people when you tippy-toe around certain subjects because you don't want to actually say the truth, or you feel like you're walking on eggshells. And I think this happens constantly. I mean, somebody will talk about, oh, no, my daughter thinks she's a cat. And you're sitting there going, should I say what I'm really thinking, or do I just walk away? There's so many things like that just in life these days, where there's just so many things that divide people that I think everyone's scared to say something.
Yeah, and I
Sometimes.
suppose the fear factor is huge. So
Yeah.
fearing other people's opinions actually stops you from having your own opinion.
Oh, good point.
That's it. Yeah, because I mean, this is where the theory works really well, is that it's great for breaking those people-pleasing habits. It
Absolutely.
shifts, it allows you not to take on their emotional baggage. It avoids ego-driven arguments.
Could it cause conflict though? So say for example, say Elan and I were, if we were completely different religions, and he was like really strong belief with his, and I was a really strong belief with mine. And Elan was going on about why his religion is so awesome. Should I be sitting there just listening to it and saying nothing? Or should I go, I don't agree, Elan. Are you supposed to challenge him on that, or is it better over your friendship if you're good friends?
No, I don't think it's about challenging people on their beliefs. I think it's about having a healthy conversation. So it's not an argument. A
Yeah.
conversation isn't an argument. And letting somebody have their opinions and letting someone, if you know that you're going to say to your friend, oh, look, I think that this color doesn't do anything for you. I think maybe you should wear this color. And you know they're going to be a little bit upset. Let them be a little bit upset, but then you have a conversation about it.
Okay.
Then it comes down to that person itself. So I think there's maybe other elements that come into, are they mature enough to actually have a conversation rather than an argument? And you might then, okay, let them have that emotion, but then decide that, hey, this may not be the person I want to continue having conversations with if they can't move, like actually have a conversation.
So my differentiation there is that with that sort of point, I think, is your belief in your religion going to affect me directly? If the answer is no, I'm going to let you talk. It's not going to affect me directly. If you're holding a gun to my head and talking to me about your religion, that will have a direct impact on me, and therefore I'm going to change my response. So the example that I've used with this, for example, is my neighbors parked on our verge. Now, it annoys the crap out of me, but at the same time, it doesn't affect me directly. When they parked on the grass where my mother-in-law couldn't park her car to get access to our gate, that's when I went across and said, you guys need to move your car. So one instance, it didn't really affect me directly. I let it go. And the other instance, it did affect us directly, and I had to action it. Same sort of thing, different circumstance.
But they probably said, sorry about that, and just moved it.
Yeah,
they may have been unaware.
I suggested my mother-in-law park on their verge, which was empty.
I was about to say, this is a great example of the let them theory. And so
Exactly.
the fear of, say, they were parking on your grass and you're thinking about the outcome first. So the fear of, well, how are they going to respond? Is it worth me actually saying anything? Instead of going, look, I need you to move your car, letting them have that reaction, but that's what I actually need you to do.
When you were talking earlier on about staff, where you have to have that conversation with a particular team member because they may be doing the wrong thing. And a lot of people, like with coaching clients, I'll say, oh, did you talk to them? They go, oh, I was going to, their dog has been ill and went to the vet. And what's that got to do with anything? But I know in their head, they're playing through the scenario. I'm going to say this, then they're going to say that. And then it's all going to spiral out of control. And they're going to get angry and cry and they might quit. And so what you're saying is their reaction to what you have to say is irrelevant. You've just got to let them have that reaction.
Yeah, I think in the clinical situation, it's a perfect example. Even it doesn't even have to come from any leadership team. It's between admin and a podiatrist or another staff member. If they're not talking to themselves, if something goes wrong and they're not telling that person because of fear of how they might react, it's going to keep going wrong until themselves are emotionally built up and it's this huge issue. You don't, as Elan said with the other books, don't sweat the small stuff. If it's small, tell people and then move on. And I think that we don't do that often enough. We create this emotional bubble within ourselves before we even have the courage to actually face the problem head on, because we're not letting those people react the way that they're just wired to react. And then once they do that, then they pretty much can have a decent conversation. But that saying shooting from the hip, people just shoot from the hip all the time and they hear something and they explode with emotion. You can't control that in somebody. And I think that's probably getting back to that let them theory. They're going to do that, but you need to have that conversation.
Also with patients, these are the conversations when you have a patient and you've asked them to do something or you've recommended they do something or they're not doing something and you bring it to their attention. And sometimes I know podiatrists will not say things to patients because they're concerned of how they're going to react.
But choosing the difference, where that boundary is, that's where the wisdom of the application comes in.
And I think what I said before too about religion, that's like in comparison to what would happen on a day-to-day basis, that was a very extreme sort of case. In the
It's so
normal day to
relevant.
day, it's relevant, but I think in
Yeah.
day to day, it's more the people you work with, your family, the patients that are coming in and out of your clinic. It's the people you're in contact with on a regular basis, I think, where this is more important. So it sounds, like I said, haven't read the book.
Well,
Yeah.
we've been talking about the let them side, but the
Yeah.
other side of that coin is if I let them, Mel Robbins purports, then let me dot dot. And that's where I think people need to be careful. The average reader needs to be careful so they don't have a CBF moment and they apply that, oh, just let them get away with murder. Let me not give a stuff about it. Excuse me, putting on the Ochre accent.
That was a knocker accent.
I am from South Africa, man.
Yeah, okay. That was a poor attempt. But anyway, I'll let you have that.
I'll keep working on it.
I'll just let you react however you want to that. But
Oh, then let me keep talking like
I'm
that.
reacting by laughing. That's just how it is.
okay, continue.
So, all right, Carl, so what's your report? I think the let them side is like the boundary, and
it's
the let me
50%
is
of it.
what I do next. So it's strategy and tactics, Tyson.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, no, I was just reading the back of the book. That says here, 2 simple words will change how you think about your entire
Well,
life.
people are getting tattoos on this. Oh, actually, can I be really controversial before we get into the let me?
Why not?
Carl, I actually, yeah, this is going to be interesting. That I found that while I was actually reading the book, the whole time I thought, I reckon my wife, Sarah, will actually benefit from reading the book far more than me. And then I realized maybe I'm not the target audience. Carls, back to you.
Well, I 100% agree that every book is not for everybody. And I think that some books resonate with you in certain parts of your life more than others. I love this book now, and if I pick it up in 5 years' time, I'll probably skip a couple of chapters going, yeah, I get it, that's what I'm doing. And I might land on something that it cues my memory again, go, yeah, sorry, I forgot to do that. That's what I was letting people do to me. Now I have to, right? So, and it's for any book. I mean, there's a lot of books that Tyson and I have read, business books that I haven't read for ages, but sometimes when things happen or there's either growth in your business or there's downturn, you look at those books and go, what messages do I need them to tell me right now? So I have the confidence moving forward, because everything's not a steady plane in life. So you can be on top of the world in a couple of months, something happens to you and you hit rock bottom again. And you need those messages that are very simple and clear. You need people to retell them to you. And I think that's what books are about. There's a lot of people that I wouldn't recommend this book to because they would just think it's a stupid book and they don't need self-help books. And that's not even not even going to be on their bookshelf.
Yeah, I refer to it as the book gods. Because I remember when I read the E-Myth, I've told the story before, I read the E-Myth, thought it was the biggest load of crap I'd ever read in my life. It was rubbish. I don't know, a pie shop? What am I doing? Toss the thing. About 5 years later, I was getting on a plane to Sydney and I went, I'm going to let the book gods decide what I'm going to read on the plane. So I ran my hand over the bookshelf, just closed my eyes, grabbed a book out, and it was the bloody E-Myth. And I went, you are kidding. I got on the plane, I read it, and I went, my God, this book is so good.
Just gold. I reckon that book was written in the 70s with me in mind.
I read it and I just went, why? It made no sense 5 years ago. So I think you're right, Carly. Every book is meant for you at a certain time. Like I bought the book. I actually bought the book because I'd seen it talked about online. I went, it looks interesting, I'm going to buy it. I bought it. I got it here, sitting on my desk, and my wife went past and said, I can't believe you got a copy of that book. I've heard so much about it. I want to read it. So she took it from me. And now I just keep hearing Mel Robbins in our house all the time because my wife's playing her podcast over and over. She has a very pleasing voice, actually. She's easy to listen to.
Yeah, I listen to a podcast up and down from Brisbane to the Sunshine Coast all the time, but it depends.
Between the Podiatry Legends podcast one.
Well, after I finish that episode.
After you finish that one, then you move to hers. Yeah.
But it's so true, because the podcast that I listen to on the way to work, it depends on my mood and depends on what I'm actually going to be doing at work. So if I need just to relax, I don't listen to her podcast. I listen to something like Hamish and Andy. That's going to make me laugh. And it's just such a stupid
Yeah,
thing.
do the same
But
thing.
it's, so I rotate the podcast depending. So if there's books, and I agree with you, Tyson, I buy some books from Amazon. I've got a pile there, but it might sit there for ages. And I'm looking at the books and I'm looking at the titles going, "Oh, I don't really feel like reading that. Like I'm not in that zone or that space to actually absorb what they're going to put out there in the universe." And that's the same as you. You bought the book, but it sat there. Your wife went past, I need this right now. And what I love about Mel Robbins and this theory is that, I'll just read something from the book. It stops you allowing other people to create unnecessary stress in your life. And a lot of the time, the stresses in your life are preempting how people are going to react to what you do.
That's it.
But I love your comment on, are you actually enabling them? And I think that's probably another episode we could talk about, is that enabling people to do things and how that actually affects you, because that's a massive effect on your life. What was the book that you said at the beginning that you thought was better than this book?
Alan Pease, Don't Sweat the Small
Don't
Stuff.
Sweat the Small Stuff. That's a great book.
I learned a lot from that, actually reading it as a child, to actually not take on other people's emotional baggage and to just look after my own and have that introspective moment where you think, does this actually need to bother me? Am I just having a temporary emotional response, and in 5 minutes time it's not going to be on my mind at all? And it's just a very good way to stop, pause, have that moment to yourself and think, is it something to get riled up about or not?
Yeah.
And if the answer is no, you just dump it from your memory and continue.
Yeah. And I think that's a great way to keep reminding yourself every day that you wake up. Your mantra is, don't sweat the small stuff. So I think it's a little bit different than what Mel Robbins was trying to get across in her book, in the way that, say, as example, you go into the kitchen, you want a Monte Carlo, but someone has bought Krispy Kremes, and you just let fly and go, oh my God, this is the worst day of my life. So sweating the small stuff. Like,
my God, that's tough. That's tough. Yes,
that's a great example.
That's a Monte Carlo biscuit all over a Monte Carlo.
So that's not sweating the small stuff. But the let them theory is having those tough conversations and like letting go of the fear of other people's reaction. So then we could probably discuss those two.
No, I can see a complete difference between the two things, because not sweating the small stuff is, like you said, they bought the Monte Carlos instead of the chocolate biscuits. Yeah, but I'm not going to worry about it. And even though I've told them 10 times, I'm not going to bring it up. It's not worth arguing about. Whereas the let them theory is, if you do decide to go up and tell them of the Monte Carlo biscuits, you've got to be prepared for their reaction. So I think they're two different theories.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Just as long as you don't forget the let me side, otherwise it just
back on the let me thing. What was the let me thing you were talking about?
I've got notes in my book. I'm just going to try and find it. So,
Elan.
Okay, so I guess you start the premise with, as I said, the let them is, okay, if I'm going to have to deal with the emotional burden of let them do this, let them do that, the next step is to, what are you going to do with yourself to either change their or your own behavior? So in other words, you let them, if you let them, let me think. A good example, a new grad wants $100,000 plus super plus relocation charges plus a $2,000 pot of CPD funding. Okay, let them. Then the question is, let me reset their expectations into their value and their worth, or let me work on making the business more able to allow the new grad to have that sort of income. But yeah, it's always it is on your mind. If it is bothering you, what mental defenses or what changes can you make to yourself to actually either mitigate the problem or address it?
Yeah. So let me theory is you're letting yourself decide what happens next. So you're not letting someone else decide what happens after that.
Tyson, she's cheating. She's been practicing.
No, I just love it. I love this stuff. And I think that Like there's decisions you have to make as a business owner. This stuff should need to be spoken about all the time because you are constantly making hard decisions all the time. You're constantly having to put yourself in front of people to make hard conversations. So if all of this isn't spoken about to other people that own practices or parents that have to make decisions, anybody who makes decisions in life, it really is anybody, then I think that we're doing ourselves a disservice because you start to really doubt yourself that you're doing a good job because you're not enabling yourself to let other people give you advice like this let them theory. Yep, that's great. You let them have an emotional attack, but then you get to decide whether you follow through with that conversation, like Elan with that person wanting exorbitant amount of money. Then it's then up to you. You give yourself back the control to what you do next. So you can either say, yes, that's fine, and then you have to be comfortable dealing with your decision, or you let yourself go, no, that's not okay. How about we go in this direction? So you're letting yourself take back your control of the situation instead of letting them control the situation.
Well, what's interesting about all that too is when a new graduate comes to you and they are telling you what they want, they're actually using the let them theory. They're letting you react to what they're saying. They're just saying what they want. They're giving you their thoughts and their opinions and leaving it in your hands to react a certain way. So how you react to it is up to you.
I think the fear is a huge one. So the fear of people not wanting to like you because your opinion's different or you actually have to say something hard to them and then maybe they're not going to like you down the track for doing that. I think we really have to stop that mental game that we play with ourselves, that it's okay if people don't like you. So if they're not going to like you because you said, I need you to buy that packet of Monte Carlos, then they're probably not the person that you're going to have a beer with at the pub or that is going to be one of your longtime friends. So I think we really need to distinguish about who we actually hang around and the opinions we care of the most.
Well, I tell you, like I said, I haven't read the book yet, but Elan, I'm swaying towards Carly about I need to read this.
Oh, I still think it's a good book. I just think the average reader needs to, well, I'm concerned that the average reader might not have those internal mechanisms in order to apply the lessons correctly.
But if the average person listening to this podcast is a podiatrist,
then they will benefit from reading the book.
They'll definitely benefit from reading the book.
And we should let them. And let me be on a podcast to just remind them that they need to be objective when applying it.
I think you pick up the book and read it if you're at a stage where you need to hear some of the theories or stories.
Well, this has been really helpful because even when I'm shooting my videos and I put them on YouTube, sometimes I'm a little bit careful about what I say.
You probably should be, Tyson. In all honesty.
But it's now, I feel like I have permission to actually say a little bit more of what I think about certain things, and how people react to that is really, it's up to them on how they react.
Yeah. It is a hard thing to do though. It's easy for us to talk about it here, but in real life situations, it's very hard to do. And it does take courage to actually change that mindset. But I think the more that you do it, the more that you remind yourself of anything in life, the better at it that you get. And the more that you start enjoying life how you want to live it, not how it's coded by someone else's reaction to it and trying to fit in. You don't have
That's
to
a question though. Does she talk about respect or being disrespectful? Because sometimes you could say what you think or what they need to hear, but at the same time, I think you've always got to be respectful for the other person's feelings. Like you're not trying to hurt them. Does she talk about that?
In a roundabout way, but I don't think that book is so much about, I think that's other books. Do you know what? Her podcast, there's podcast episodes that she does talk about that because she gets guests on to delve into those conversations. So obviously we're not masters of all trades. So she has this theory and she pulls other people in that connect with the theory but are a master of another trade, exactly like what you're saying.
Well, Elan was squirming in his seat from that question.
I just go back to the example she brings up a number of times where the wife's husband is lazy bones, and she purports that the wife should just let it go. And I don't think that's a healthy way to be in a relationship. Going back to the whole, does this affect the wife directly? I think it does.
Yeah, it
Does
does.
it affect him directly? Yeah. So you need some tough love there. You can't let him continue along those ways without the wife saying, I'm really worried about your health, and I think you should stop eating the bad food, and I think you need to exercise. Otherwise, this will affect me directly, because you're going to
Yeah.
have that emotional dissonance. And at that rate, the husband will wonder why one day he wakes up in the morning and discovers that his wife has left him.
Yeah. And
That's where I get a little bit worried.
that's a let me thing. She's walking out.
Yeah.
So I think possibly if he wants to sit on the couch, let him sit on the couch. But let me make the next choice about what you do. If you stay, then be comfortable with it. But you have a choice whether you stay or go then.
As long as they have the conversation.
Yeah, that's a healthy relationship then. That's another book.
I've got a big whiteboard out the back, and every now and then people actually do bother to walk past and read it. And I've written up things like, I've dispensed with the whole let them, and I've written up some let me comments there. So let me reflect, let me act with maturity, let me stay true to my values, and the final one was, let me step in when it counts.
A man after my own heart. I love whiteboards. I've got whiteboards everywhere. So I think they're a fabulous thing because you can tick it off, and when it's done, you just wipes it clear out of your mind. But it's there.
On that note, I want to thank you both for coming on here and sharing your thoughts on this. I'm convinced I will read it.
What you can do is you have it on your bedside table, and if something's happened during the day, you can open it to a chapter that speaks to that and read it and just go, that's what I need to do. And it just calms you down.
You know what's really interesting? They reckon at any time in life, throughout the day, if all of a sudden you just, your head's a bit messed up, you just go and grab a book like this. So I haven't read the book. Just turn to any page. I'm going to do it right now and just read something that's there, and it will probably resonate with something that is happening in your day. This is how the book gods work. So it's got here. When you let other people lead the way, you'll realize that beneath all the fear and excuses and time wasted in the life you've wanted all along. Does that make any sense? Taking it out of context.
Yeah, well, your life path, if someone's leading you down your life path, why are they even on your life path to begin with? And why are they leading?
Yeah, but even just reading that chapter there.
Oh, let them.
Yeah, but even just reading that chapter there right now, the only things that are holding you back from taking control of your life are the excuses, fears, and emotions that we have been discussing throughout this entire book. Don't need to read the book. I think that
there you go.
That just summarized everything.
Yep. 320
like the one thing book.
319 pages.
Yeah, but it's amazing that there's so many books. You just pick them up and you read it, even taking it out of context. You know nothing else about the book. It's surprising how your brain will read that and reacts to, I need that today, or it'll flick another thought or emotion.
She's going on tour. She's taken this on tour around a couple of states in America. And wow, imagine being in that room and the buzz in that room and how good you would feel afterwards.
No, I wouldn't.
Okay, so I'll be with somebody else.
I went to an Anthony Robbins thing many years ago, and I'm in there and everyone's standing on their chairs and they're all jumping around like lunatics. Yeah, they're all fired up. And I'm sitting there looking at them going, what the hell is going on?
It is a little cult-like, isn't it?
Yeah. And they said, aren't you fired up? I said, well, yeah, I am. I said, but I'm fired up on the inside. I said, I don't have to ring up 20 of my mates to come around, jump up and down on my lounge to get me revved up to actually do something. I said, which is what you need at the moment. So, yeah. I
think that's a problem in itself, actually.
I took in the information.
You need those people around you to rev you up.
Yeah, I took in the information over that weekend. It was fun, but I didn't like the standing on the chairs and the happy clapping that went along with it. And I don't mind applause. I don't mind a bit of cheering, but yeah, dancing on chairs, no, doesn't work. Anyway, that's just me. So on that note, I want to thank you both for coming on here, sharing your wisdom on the book. I hope people have enjoyed this. I hope they make a wise choice. And if you have any questions, send me an email at tyson@podiatrylegends.com, especially if it's for Carly or Elan, and I'll pass it on to them.
Sounds good.
Excellent. Can't
Great
wait for those
chat.
emails.
Okay.
Send them through.
I'll talk to you
Let them
later.
write in and let me reply.
Oh, yeah. You can send me the question and say, now I want Elan to reply to this. Okay, guys. Thank you very much.
See you later.
Bye.